Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Danny and today I'm going to be talking about my breastfeeding journeys. So this week is World Breastfeeding Week and it's a time to celebrate breastfeeding, so I thought I would share my experiences breastfeeding two babies. So when I had Frank, my eldest, who's 3 now, I was 19, so I was obviously very young, but I was absolutely determined to breastfeed. There was no alternative in my mind of how I would be feeding Frank. I was going to breastfeed. I didn't buy any bottles, didn't buy any formula, I was 100% set that I was going to breastfeed. So obviously I didn't think about what would happen if I couldn't. I didn't really think about any of that. That was just the only option for me. And luckily he latched really well straight away. We were discharged from the hospital really quickly. I think he was born at 51 minutes past midnight and we were home by 6 o'clock. I can't remember what time, but within 6 hours, 5 hours, we were home. And I think we had a slight hiccups to begin with. So the first day, obviously like most newborns, he was very sleepy and the sleepier he got, the less he would latch on until it got to, I think, the next day after he was born. And I was like, I can't remember the last time I fed him. So we called the midwife over and luckily all his his vitals were still okay. So we didn't need to go into hospital or anything. But she was kind of just like, if he doesn't take milk now, we will need to step in and do something. And she suggested syringe feeding, which is basically just like those little Cowpole syringes. You can do it with that, just squirting the milk into the baby's mouth. And for us, that was, after we did that, literally no hiccups from there. It was just plain sailing. Once he was then had enough milk to wake up, he was just a really good feeder. He was very small when he was born. I think he was 6 pounds something. But then he jumped up to like the 99th percentile and he's stayed on the 99th percentile ever since. So he just thrived, absolutely thrived. I did have mastitis when he was 4 months old, over my birthday, obviously, because that's luck, isn't it? And that was the first time I had mastitis, and I remember it being bad, but it wasn't horrendous. I think it must have been quite mild, and I think I caught it really early as well. But apart from that, that was fine. We did give him a bottle when he was 3 months old, I think, 3 or 4 months old, of express milk to begin with, and then once he was about 8 or 9 months old I did start giving formula as well when I went back to work, just because I didn't have an electric pump, and using a manual pump to express breast milk is not easy. If anyone's done that, the pump I had was not good, so that for me that was just easier. But then he still breastfed until he was 1. And then I really can't remember how it happened, but I think he must have just self-weaned. I think I was ready to stop as well, and he must have been ready because I had no problems stopping feeding him. So then when I got pregnant with Mavis, again, I didn't even contemplate formula feeding. I was like, I've done it for 12 months, I can do it, I know what to do, I know what I'm doing, if anything comes up, I'll know what to do. So after she was born, she latched straight away. And I thought her latch was better than Frank's was to begin with, and I was like, oh thank God, she's really good at this. And again, we got discharged really quickly, within 6 hours, went home, and I got home and I remember asking my mother-in-law to bring some of that nipple cream over, the purple one, I can't remember the name of it now, just because I was like, yeah, they're a bit sore, and it didn't clock in my head then, it shouldn't be so sore so soon. She brought some over and I started using it straight away. And the pain kept getting worse, and I was like, oh, it doesn't feel good. And then, I can't remember what happened first. It's weird how you forget. I've written this all down now and I still can't remember. But the midwife came over to weigh her on day 3, and day 3 is like the day that baby blues hits you, like what it hit me, like literally. I didn't get it with Frank, but with Mavis, I have never cried as much as I did with baby blues. But she came over to weigh on day 3 and Mavis had lost weight, and my milk hadn't come in then because for whatever reason my milk didn't come in until day 5. So I was like, well, yeah, of course she hasn't gained weight, but she'd lost weight and she had jaundice as well. And the midwife was kind of like, I think the only reason she didn't send me into hospital was because I was on the home birth team, and she must have just known that we didn't want the hospital experience. You okay, Frank?
Yeah, I just need my tablet.
Okay, I'll get it for you in a second, okay? Will you let me do this first? Yes, so she didn't mean to make me feel bad, but she did make me feel really just like, oh my god, like this isn't going well. So
Let's go into the outside.
okay. So she basically said, like, for the next couple of days you can't leave the house, like all you need to do is establish breastfeeding. So I didn't leave the house except to go to her newborn hearing test, and in that time her latch was completely off, and in that time she had absolutely shredded my nipples. I have taken pictures of them and I look back at it now and I'm just like, how I got through that, like how I allowed that to happen, I will never know. And obviously her latch wasn't right. I asked the midwife to look at it. She said there was nothing wrong with her latch. But I did find out a couple of weeks later when I was discharged from the midwife to the health visitor. The health visitor thought that she had a posterior tongue tie. She was like, oh, it's so minor, we don't need to do anything about it. And I was just like, tell my nipples that, because it was not minor. So obviously my nipples were not in a good state, and any open wound can then get infected. And that's what happened. They got infected and I got mastitis. And this time it was horrendous, absolutely horrendous. I didn't think it was mastitis.
Me on the camera.
Yes, you on the camera.
Yeah.
Yes, you on the camera. I didn't think it was mastitis until I was, and Mavis was born in July. It was boiling hot, and Connie just came downstairs and he was just like, why you got a dressing gown and a blanket on? And I was like shivering. I was like, I'm so cold. And he was like, I think you got a fever. And I was like, yeah. And then he was like, he must have seen like a mark there, and he was like, what's wrong with your chest? And I was like, oh, I just got a bit of a rash. And it was just inflamed, and he was just like, you need to go to a doctor like right now. But I wasn't well enough. I was like, there's no way I can go. And yeah, my doctor's was shut, so it was just, you know, when just everything's going wrong. So yeah, we had to call 111, and he had to go to the hospital to pick up the antibiotics. It was a bit of a nightmare, but that was fine, I had to do it. Mastitis, when you're that engorged anyway, is horrendous. But then I was just like, I can't keep feeding with my nipples the way they are. Like, this is just the worst thing ever. And my mum bought me some nipple shields, and she thought it was those like milk collecting things that you wear under your bra, but it wasn't. It was actually like a shield. And my health visitor, I was with the health visitor now, she came over, she was like, just try them. And I was like, oh, I don't want to. I've read so many bad things about nipple shields. Like, nipple shields are the worst. Like, if you use them, the baby won't be able to stimulate enough milk, and they won't latch properly, and you'll never be able to stop using them, and you'll just stop breastfeeding within a couple of weeks. And I was like, I really want to breastfeed still. She was like, just give it a try. Like, you can't. She watched me breastfeed once, and I was like crying. I was in so much pain. She was like, you can't keep doing this. So I did it with the shield. Oh my god, why didn't I do that sooner? Honestly, I'm obviously not a breastfeeding professional. I don't know everything about breastfeeding, but if you are in that position where your nipples are like infected, they're bleeding every time your baby is latching onto you, like, you know the thing when you say that your toes curl with pain, that was happening for me every time. Nipple shield, no problem. Like, literally not a problem. And Mavis didn't have a problem getting enough milk either, because then I was worried that the nipple shields, she wouldn't be getting enough milk if she wasn't gaining weight well enough anyway. And she did. She was still gaining weight on just the nipple shields alone. But not enough, apparently. Not enough for me either. And then I was just like, you know, and it was just a really emotional time. And I think now looking back, it was hard for me to digest in the moment anyway. So yeah, so I was then, after a couple of days, it feels like weeks at the time, but this was all just like, this was been like day 14, day 15 by this point. I was just like, no, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep constantly having the pressure on me and her not gaining enough weight, and I was in absolute state. Like, I wasn't leaving the house, I was just crying all the time, couldn't do anything with Frank. So I was just like, I'm gonna have to give her some formula. And everyone was like, yeah, just do it. Just like, you're not happy, she's not happy, just do it. But in my head, this was like the biggest thing that I could do. Like, I was like, oh, I'm gonna fail, I'm a failure. Like, that was the thing, like the failure. But my husband was just like, just give her some milk. just give her some and see what happens. So I gave her a bottle, and obviously she loved it because babies do love a bottle. And then I was just like, oh, well, that's it. I'm not going to breastfeed from now on then.
Big boys like milk.
Big boys like milk as well, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When they're tired.
Yeah, when they're tired. So I just thought that would be the end, and I thought the more milk I gave, or the longer it went on, the less she would breastfeed. But luckily that wasn't actually the case, and I found that breastfeeding doesn't have to be an all or nothing thing. You can combination feed just really well, and it worked so well for us. I think I did it for 2 months, but then I got to the point where I was just like, once I'd gotten over the pain and the initial discomfort, I just thought I could do this full time again now, once I'd gotten through that horrendous first month or so. Once I'd gotten through that, I thought, oh, I could do this. And I had to work on building up my supply. But I did manage to do it, and I did, well, I don't know if it was exclusive because I had given her formula, but I did feed her like 100% breast milk until she was 6 months old. So I was really happy about that, especially when you think about how it started to begin with. Like, I had a really bad start compared to with Frank. So then the Nipple Shields was the next thing. I had to wean her off of them. Well, I wanted to wean her off of them. And I'd read online that it was notoriously difficult to do. Like, but once they've latched onto the Nipple Shield, the baby won't know how to latch onto just your nipple, because obviously the Nipple Shield mimics a bottle, which is easier for them to latch onto. So I kind of resigned myself to thinking it's never going to happen. But it was a bit of a faff, especially breastfeeding in public, like trying to discreetly put the shield over your nipple, and you've got like a floppy, screaming, crying baby, and I had a toddler as well that I'm like trying to keep still. It was really difficult, so I was like, I do think I need to try and get her off the Nipple Shields. So one day I just took the Nipple Shield off and she latched on. So it was literally that simple. I just think she had to be that bit bigger to be able to latch onto it. So yeah. So my second breastfeeding experience was a journey. It definitely was a learning curve. I just thought, because I'd sailed through the first experience of breastfeeding, I just thought I'd be a pro by then, but I've truly believe that every baby and every experience is different. So I just think people who they haven't met their breastfeeding goals the first time, the second time will probably be like a walk in the park. Unfortunately though, the people who have the first time, the second time might not be, so who knows. If I have a third baby, I'm hoping it won't be as bad as the second time. I mean, not as painful, but I think I have learnt. I've got lots of tips that I would bring out sooner. Nipple Shields for one, like I wouldn't let myself get to that point of infection next time, just because it's just not worth it, is it? It's just not worth it when there's tools there that will help you breastfeed for as long as you want without the pain. So yes, happy National Breastfeeding Week to everyone out there, to all mothers out there who breastfed for one feed or for 5 years, like literally any amount. To give it a go is just amazing. It is amazing, and I hope one day I will get that chance again. But until then, thank you for watching my video. I'm sorry this turned into such a saga. It was like, I can't talk about it and it not turn into a saga. At the time, literally that's all I talked about, nipples for 2 months. So I apologise to anyone who had to talk about nipples with me for then. But yeah. So anyway, thank you for watching. Hopefully you liked this video. If you did, please give it a like. If you like my content, please subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in my next video. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.